someone said to me, it's like it's going to have 10 times the impact of the Industrial Revolution at 10 times the speed. Customer experience is becoming a critical deliverable for every business. High trust channels are going to be much, much more important because our customers have never been more accessible, but earning their attention has never been more challenging. The vision superseded the capability for too long, probably. It required a different level of intellect. So 55% of the workforce are using AI tools every single day. How many of those tools are approved and how many of them have actually been trained on those tools? You can't grow by standing still. You can't grow by relying on customers' growth. Ultimately, every business needs to acquire more customers, retain the ones they've got, and service them for less. We all expect not personalized experiences, but fully contextualized experiences too. Businesses are always looking for perfect, but it doesn't exist. Sometimes good is great.
Thanks for listening to Above the Tree Line from Treeline Press. This podcast reaches an audience focused on how customer communications reveal the larger story of digital transformation around the world. We look at how AI, customer experience, and capital are reshaping how organizations deliver information, service, and trust. Sponsorships are available for podcasts like this. If your company has a story to tell in this changing market, visit treelinepress.com to learn more.
So, Sami Aintaoui, CEO of MBA Group, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to spend some time with you today. I really appreciate it. I've known the MBA Group, I think probably going back about a decade, maybe. I think I first visited I was with Casper. So Sammy, just to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the MBA Group and 43 years in?
Yes. Yeah, MBA has been trading for 43 years and we got heritage obviously in print. And that's still a core part of our offering today. Facilitate that service through 2 production sites in Greater London and in Warrington. And over the last 5 years, I've been more heavily involved in our strategy and our trajectory. And we've really been focusing on 2 things, which is growth and transformation, both of our own services, but also of our client services. And those 2 things are neatly aligned. So their success is our success. But that's been a long road. I've only been part of the organization for about 7 years, but in that time, the business has doubled over a 5-year period, a rolling 5-year period. So that's a fantastic achievement for a business that is, as you say, 4 decades old. So we're pleased with progress, but we need more.
And has that growth been expansion in existing customers or takeaways or net new business, or how would you define that growth? Because many times it's just, well, we got the bid, right? We got the deal. But it seems to me that you might be expanding your footprint inside your customers through new capabilities and new services. Is it kind of, what does that look like?
We've done almost all of that growth organically.
Wow.
So a combination of new logos and new services to existing logos, if you like. And that's a great way to do things because it means that you can focus on the client rather than internal rationalization. If you buy another business, of course, you kind of kickstart growth, or you can double your business very, very quickly through acquisition. But it means that you have to focus inwardly on rationalization, on standardization. Because we've been able to do that organically, it means that we've been able to focus on the client to do that. So when you grow organically, you have to onboard each one of those new logos. That's hard work. But when you do that, it means you get to learn everything about that customer because you're building anew or modularly. So you get to understand their systems. That's a great thing when you're trying to really add value and really helping them transform. The second facet to our growth has been through new service lines into existing logos. And again, we've been able to leverage the knowledge that we've got through those longer term relationships with them to be able to help them deliver transformation. And some of those capabilities that we've used to deliver more services and to deliver transformation have been have been acquisitions.
Okay.
So although I say most of our growth has come organically, some of it's come through acquisition,
Sure.
but we've really acquired for capability rather than for growth and for revenue.
Yeah. And if you were to just define organically, if you can, how much would you say that growth is due to increased print volume versus other services, other digital enabled services?
Well, I think you've got to remember that this is a really mature market. So if you think about programmatic work or transactional work, by which I mean kind of billings
Sure.
or bank statements, you should expect to see your customers' volume decline by 5% every year. So, and maybe as much as 10%. It really depends
Mhm.
on how aggressive they are and how successful they are at transformation internally. So you can't grow by standing still. You can't grow by relying on customers' growth. You have to be able to grow through new logos or new services. And it's difficult to distill exactly what that looks like, but we are very comfortable in driving transformation for our clients. If we can help you digitize output, if that's what it is that you're trying to do, then there's a mutual benefit for both of us in doing that. I mean, the trade-off in revenue and margin is sort of 1 to 5. So if you can replace, you know, with every pound,
Mhm.
so to speak, in
No, that's all right.
British terms, but for every pound, you need roughly 20p in digital to kind of stay
Mhm.
at that break even from a margin perspective. So that means there's huge incentive for both organizations, ourselves and our clients, to deliver on that ambition if that's what they want. So it's difficult to say where exactly growth has come from, digital versus print, but obviously the needle from a service perspective continues to move towards digital every year. So yeah.
Yeah. One of my first experiences with MBA was the personalized video.
I think as an organization, we've always been very innovative, whether that's rolling back, 2, 3 decades ago, moving from lithographic print to fully digital
Mm.
variable print, or whether that be in digital adoption as we do today. So we've we've kind of always got that balance right between building and buying, and video smart, the personalized video technology that you talk of, that was a build. So that's our own IP. We are um, in the top 2 globally in terms of the service. We're the largest in the UK, and it depends where you get your information, but
Yeah.
um, it's pretty close in terms of Europe, in terms of our coverage, whether we're first or second. So that's a technology that we built from the ground up, and the service that we've built, and that now is part of our stable. Originally, it was a bit tangential, but is part of our core stable in terms of capabilities now.
Now your customer base though, is it UK, Europe? What I mean, is it primarily just the UK or what's your reach?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we're obviously UK centric because our traditional service lines don't travel particularly well cross border,
Right.
or particularly cross sea as it is here
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
in the UK as an island. But as we move digital, more and more of our services are international. And there's always this moment in when we're kind of presenting to clients or to new prospects, where we pull up a logo slide, because everyone needs a good logo slide. And we have our digital clients that are digital only on one side and our multi-service clients on the other. And one of the things that a lot of people put out is, oh, your digital clients are even more impressive. You've got Bloomberg on there, Deloitte Digital as a client. How did you win them? And I think for, the reason those logos are so strong is just because digital travels very, very easily. We're not bound by borders. We don't have to worry about
Mm.
logistics to deliver the output. So we're becoming more and more international, still very UK centric. A lot of our international relationships originally are initiate in the UK still,
Yeah.
but yeah, increasingly more international, and obviously stronger presence in Europe now, and some in the US, although limited.
So obviously you're going out to your customers, you're going to market. How come the communications are starting to become, getting more focus from your customers?
I think customer experience is becoming a critical deliverable for every business.
Yeah.
I think that we are seeing so much consolidation across every market, and increasingly the differentiator becomes customer experience. You look at financial services, for example, and you look at those challenger brands that have done so very well in the US and the UK and Europe. Their differentiator is the customer experience, right? So a big proportion of that comes from your communications, how personalized they are, how relevant they are, how timely they are, whether they're in the right channel. That
Mhm.
becomes increasingly important. So it's becoming a bigger focal point for businesses that are communicating at scale. How can they do that really, really effectively? And that's part of what we're trying to do through a combination of software, managed services, and output. So I think it's becoming more and more important at the business level, uh, getting your communications right.
So let's just kind of step back a bit. So MBA started out as a traditional printer,
Yeah.
commercial print back in the day.
Yeah.
So so what changed? What were the, over 43 years, I'm gonna do the math here, about 1983. What things have changed over the years? And your father started the
Yep.
company, correct?
Yep.
What are the types of things that your father discussed and you've observed over the last 43 years that have been the sort of key triggers that have transformed MBA from a traditional commercial offset printer to what it is today?
So I think the transformation started with the shift to personalized output, because when that happened, it required a different level of intellect. We were required to process data and to help normalize data and to help clients maximize the data they had on their customers. And that brings a whole new set of requirements and a whole new set of skills into the business. And today we process billions and billions of fields of data every single year. But once you start to understand that data, once you start to interrogate that data, you can really help clients build strategies for communication. You know, how can we communicate to this customer? What contact details do we have? What is it that we're trying to say? And how can we personalize that message so it has maximum impact? How do we make sure that we are keeping things as concise as possible by using that variable data to drive the most relevant content to the top of the message? So that then really starts to allow you to be much more involved further up the funnel in terms of strategy, decision making. But of course, you need to be able to facilitate those conversations, right? So some of that you can do through great hires. Some of that you need to do through bringing in new service lines through acquisitions. And that's what we started to do. Is we realized we had the ability to move upstream to help make those, to be involved in the decision making process rather than post decision
Mhm.
help them deliver on the decisions they'd already made.
Yeah.
So some of that started with bringing an agency into our service offering. So we bought an agency called Studio Certain, and they're a brand and strategy agency. And they allowed us to elevate the conversation to say, what is it that you're trying to say? And how can we help you build out those customer journeys so that it's not just a flurry of individual communications, but we're trying to build a cohesive customer journey that facilitates a customer experience. And then once we'd done that, we then bought a software business, which was Intillery, that then allowed us to take those journeys we were designing with, in combination with the client, and start building them out so that we could automate all of it. And you can do that through sort of drag and drop, clickable interface, and that then gives the client control, so they're not reliant on us for change. They are empowered to make their own change. So that's kind of the journey that we've been on. But if I kind of really look at where did that change start, well before before my time. I was working in financial services, but it really probably started with that transition to more personalized output and requiring the vendor to be able to handle data on your behalf.
I'm really curious about how, the balance between, and you've touched on it a little bit, the balance between innovating for innovation's sake versus customers coming to you and saying, hey, MBA Group, there's got to be a better way to do this, or this is costing us too much money, or we want to stand out in the marketplace and have a different offering. Were you sort of led by your customers in terms of how you drove innovation, or was it a let's just experiment and see where this goes? Because I've always perceived MBA as a pretty progressive and forward-thinking company, and I have this picture I could probably show you. It's on my laptop of Martin Taylor and I up standing in front of a board, and I remember him saying, "You can take this picture, but you can't show anybody." Oh, this was 10 years ago, I think 8 years ago, and it was really this idea, and you use the term cohesive. It was really this idea of really closing the loop on the communications, right? We're gonna produce the communication, and then we're gonna track and see what actually, the the full loop,
Yeah.
right? Including call centers and managing the incoming calls and the customer support. So, you know, I, I'm just really fascinated by that. How you got there? Was it just that you had the flexibility to say we can try this, or was it a customer coming to you and say we got a problem? Can you help us fix it?
So I think the concept of being able to manage the end-to-end process so that we could truly be the conduit between the brand and the customer has been a vision we've had for a long time that we can now fully deliver on. The vision superseded the capability for too long,
Yeah.
probably. But that very much was the strategic vision for the organization. So we process the data from the customer. We help design that customer journey. We help automate that customer journey. We deliver the output through any channel, whether it's SMS, email, or print, and then we can track every click. We can track every engagement. We can handle the phone calls. As you mentioned, we have a small contact center up in Warrington that we service our customers, or can service our customers through, our clients' customers through.
Right.
And that allows us to then collect all of that engagement data and understand how the customer's interacting. And then, of course, we can feed that back in and append that to the original data so that we can start to improve journeys. So that kind of process that Martin was probably talking to you about that day is a long held vision that we can now deliver on. I think how innovation comes about below that is never as neat as you'd like it to be. It's a combination of self-belief and pursuing your own ideas and trying to spot patterns of requirements within your customers. And I think both work. If you try to innovate and create a product, then the lead time to realizing its value to you as an organization is much longer, right? Because first you have to explain the idea, you have to explain the value, and the market follows a concept, and there's a long lag there where you are looking at opportunity within the market and looking to rationalize that so you can build something that can scale across customers because there's a common need. That's a quicker way to monetizing an idea, but it might not be as original,
Yeah.
and there might be more people pursuing it because it's
Sort of a
feedback
known.
from
Yeah.
the market. So I don't know if one's better than the other. I know one is certainly much quicker to get people to pay for,
You get the
but
revenue. Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, at the end of the day, that's really important in this business. And
yeah,
I mean, so it strikes to me that you're not your sellers and the people that are buying from MBA are not your traditional print sellers, print buyers. You're speaking to a different level in the organization. You mentioned some names. I know American Express is a big client,
yep.
right? American Express, Deutsche Bank. Um, you're selling at a marketing level, at a C level. I mean, you're selling into the enterprise
We
very differently than I think, well, at least in the US, a lot of PSBs are selling to the print buyers.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, obviously it depends. to be honest with you. Increasingly, the conversations are with senior stakeholders within the organization with much broader remits, and we're solving broader problems, but not always,
Hmm.
you know. And it's very interesting that sometimes our longest standing clients are the slowest to realize our capability, despite the closeness of our relationships. Whereas newer organizations to the group, newer partnerships are bought into our organization because of those
They can put the whole
capabilities.
portfolio
Yeah.
and go.
So that's an interesting sort of juxtaposition, because you would expect the longest standing clients that have the highest level of trust would have the broadest engagement, but it's not always the case. And some relationships are super traditional. And of course we try to move the needle, but we're also really pleased to be working with those excellent organizations, and we'll continue to do so as long as they want us to. Um, it's always a frustration because you know you've got so much more to offer,
Yeah.
particularly because you understand the organization. And some of those organizations, we have more tenure working with them than the most senior, longest
First
standing
person.
employee we have access to. So
Hey, no, that's a really
that's
fascinating perspective, because oftentimes you hear, well, it starts with trust and they trust us. So and so you bring sort of a new perspective to that story. That's really pretty interesting. And so you've made some acquisitions recently, to sort of continue to expand and deliver more. So tell us about the Textblode acquisition. I mean, that was just what, maybe 2 months ago?
Yeah, really recent. A couple of months ago, a little longer in the working. I think I kind of talked a little bit about the journey that we've been on, and first we wanted to be able to be far more consultative with our clients. We then wanted to be able to help deliver on that consultative conversation through automation and through self-serve software tools. And we bought a software company, 13 years, I think, in the market, which allows us to do all of those things, build customer journeys, template different channels and different documents. But we wanted to be able to do that at scale, and we wanted to be able to introduce new channels into our channel mix. And one of those is one of those that's come by virtue of the Textblade acquisition is RCS, so Rich Communication Services.
Right.
So that's a growing channel here in the UK. Different markets have different levels of penetration, but
Right.
since I think iOS 18
Mhm.
introduced RCS, that's becoming a much more accessible channel and useful channel to organizations. So about 85% of the UK can now receive RCS messages. And for those that aren't across RCS, it's essentially um, a richer form of SMS or
Right.
text messaging. So you can include images, you can include links, buttons, payment links in the RCS. But the most important element for me is that it's a high trust channel. So anyone that's sending an RCS is able to verify their business with the networks, like AT&T in the US or Vodafone here in the UK. And that means that when you receive a message from those businesses, you'll see the logo and you'll see all of the verified details of that business. An SMS looks very different to that, right? It comes from a mobile number. It's void of any sort of trust signals. And that's becoming really, really important, because in this day and age where digital is so cheap and it's so easy to create, especially with the advent of AI, high trust channels are going to be much, much more important if you want to maintain engagement with your customers. And RCS is absolutely one of those channels. It's going to be much higher trust than email, much higher trust than SMS, and on parity with print, really, in terms of how trustworthy it is.
No, I agree. I mean, authenticity is probably one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And how do I know this is real?
Yeah.
I just got something the other day that I literally had, you spend like extra time going, is this actually what I think it is?
Yeah.
And eventually you see that, at least in the US, it's like, oh, it came from a foreign phone number. No, I mean, that's the dead giveaway, right? But it is a real challenge. And I think people love their mobile devices, right? They love that immediacy. They
Yeah.
love that convenience, the timeliness, the ability to just engage right there in the moment. But you're only going to do that if you feel comfortable and confident that this is really your bank or your, whoever it might be.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So are customers really excited about that? Are you getting some good pickup on that?
Yeah, we are. I think, part of our proposition is that we are a wholesaler and therefore we have very, very competitive rates. So
Yeah.
that always makes adoption very easy when you can sell it cheaply. Certainly SMS. I think RCS. I've been surprised actually just how many of our clients are attuned to what it is, the value it has. Adoption has maybe been slower just because penetration has only got to where it is recently, and also it's on a long list of things to do for every client.
Right.
But we've really worked hard to make that as frictionless as possible in terms of the onboarding process, and we commit to a certain amount of support for that. But yeah, look, I think it's going to be a really, really important channel for every business in every sector.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah,
Well, tell me, one of the things that I'm fascinated with when it comes to digital delivery and things like RCS is you're sending a communication out, but then you get all this data back. And so I think one of the pieces that some of the people that I talk to sort of miss is when you start sending out digital communications, you are actually going to get a whole lot more digital data back. And now you've got more data now to deal with once you send a digital communication. How has that been for NBA to sort of, now you have all this engagement data and you're starting to build sort of this rich sort of data set based off of your digital services. Have you been able to mine that? Or is that, I guess maybe the question is, were you set up for that to begin with? I'm going to kind of assume that you were, but how is that response data and everything? You send an email and you get back a whole bunch of stuff. You send a text message, you get, excuse me, RCS. Um, what does that look like for you? I mean, has that been a challenge? Has it been a benefit? How are you sort of managing that sort of?
I mean, it's definitely a benefit because the longer your engagement and the broader your engagement, the more value that your data set has. So the more people we contact, the more engagement data we have, both at an individual level, but also at a trends level, the more powerful our solution and our platform becomes to the end client. Obviously, we've obviously been on a journey to make sure that we are able to facilitate all of that. But the reality is that the challenge is not for us; the challenge is for the customer, right? For the client, sorry. Because if you think about that device, that your mobile, it's never more than a couple of meters away from you, even when you're sleeping. There's 5 or 6 different channels that you can be communicated to at any one point. It could be social, WhatsApp, text message, email. You probably have more than one email. And a business is supposed to know exactly what channel to turn up in and when to turn up in that channel. And that's a really difficult thing to do because our customers have never been more accessible because they have this device on them 24/7. But earning their attention has never been more challenging. And as we move forwards, that challenge is only going to become further and further exasperated because the way that we engage with businesses and with the internet is completely changed over the last 2 years. We used to surf the internet. Now we talk to it.
Right.
And we expect every business to facilitate a conversation in the same way that ChatGPT does when we're doing
What do you mean
research.
set my preferences? You should know what my
Yeah.
preferences are, right?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Right.
So businesses are going to have to prioritize their understanding of the customer. And that all starts with making sure that you're collecting the engagement data, and then more importantly, that you're not just looking at it for trends, which are very nice, but that you're utilizing it the next time you go and contact that customer.
Yeah.
So if you contact them, via email and they respond in web chat, then you need to be able to facilitate that changeover from WhatsApp to web chat or print to web chat very, very quickly. So print might be the right notification channel, but if they're moving to conversation, how are you going to facilitate that?
Above the Tree Line podcasts like this are open for sponsorship. This podcast reaches an audience focused on how customer communications reveal the larger story of digital transformation around the world. We look at how AI, customer experience, and capital are reshaping how organizations deliver information, service, and trust. For sponsors, this creates an opportunity to be part of a focused conversation with an audience that's already paying attention to where the market is heading. Treeline Press works with organizations through sponsorships, branded podcasts, executive interviews, event coverage, moderated discussions, and more. These opportunities are designed for companies that need to explain where they fit into this changing market. To learn more about sponsorship, media hosting, and event coverage opportunities, visit treelinepress.com.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I just wanted to touch base on one more thing on this area, and you brought up WhatsApp. So, WhatsApp sort of that over the top sort of layer, but do you feel like customers are comfortable with RCS? Are they wanting to stay there versus WhatsApp? Is there a trend to sort of kind of keep moving up a little bit into a WhatsApp kind of a environment? Do you see that or?
WhatsApp, we've supported WhatsApp for quite some time.
Okay.
It's a complicated product because Meta own it, and
Right.
they change their mind about things all of the time, and so
it's a moving target.
so we integrate with it. It's a really engaging tool. I think it's great for conversational. I don't think it's great for outreach necessarily.
Mm.
So for inbound, where the customer reaches out to a brand, I think it's really, really effective. You're communicating on their terms. With WhatsApp, it's perfectly acceptable to wait 5 minutes for someone to respond, and then you'll wait 5 minutes and respond again. That's quite nice for businesses because they can smooth the curve in terms of conversation. On a phone call, you have to answer it, you have to deal with it
Right.
when they call.
Right.
With WhatsApp, you can kind of smooth that slightly. Web chat times out, WhatsApp doesn't. So it's a great channel, but it's got a time and a place, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm just kind of curious because, to your point, in certain parts of the world, it's all WhatsApp, right? So tell me about Pulse. Is that's your own platform? You built that from?
No, we didn't. We didn't build.
You acquired
Pulse.
it?
We acquired it. We
Okay.
acquired it. Formerly, it was called Antillery, and
Okay.
we acquired it, and we've worked hard on recalibrating it. I know that's a really vague word.
Well, I like it. For me.
But we've been working hard on recalibrating it so that it's more accessible to clients, so that there's less barriers to adoption than there were previously. We've looked to lower the learning curve, and essentially it's a comms platform that allows you to manage all your channels in one place, join them together in cohesive customer journeys, and create a history of everything you've said to your customer and that they've said to you. So you can have a really kind of I guess it's a modular comms ecosystem that kind of comes pre-integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas previously you might have needed 4 different solutions to facilitate the entire comms strategy. You can now do that in a modular way with a single platform.
Yeah, well, that's very powerful. And is that a customer-facing solution? In other words, is there a I'm kind of hesitant to use the term dashboard, but I can't come up with anything better. But
Yeah.
so this is, you have a client at a bank or a financial services firm. They have their instance of.
Yeah, it's a SaaS product, and you can log in,
Yeah.
you can drag and drop, you can build your comms, you can build your journeys, and you can set them to deploy after you've kind of been through your custom approval routine. So it's a SaaS product,
Okay.
and it's drag and drop, click to build.
Right. So that's a So a use case might be, first thing we're going to do, we're going to send Sam an email. Well, if he doesn't respond to the email, we're going to try 3 times.
Perfect.
Then we're going to send him an RCS. And if he doesn't respond, then we're going to go to the press and we're going to print it and put it in the post. But it's that kind of a
Perfect example.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
right.
Exactly that. And we've got some really complicated use cases that
Sure.
are happening in there. Like we have a home care brand that's on there, for example, and they do in-home care. So we can see how far away the visiting physician is from your home address, and we can inform you that they're 15 minutes away. We have lots and lots of equally as complex use cases across things like energy and utilities, care, financial services, and some retail as well.
Yeah. So you got something going on in August here in a couple of months?
We do, but you might know as much as I do because marketing have kept me well out of any of their plans.
Oh, we should get Katie in here to talk.
Yeah, we should. We should, and she's far more interesting than I.
Get a mic on you, Katie. You can come and join us.
But yeah, look, we've been working away on Pulse. We rebranded it and we consolidated some of our other technology stacks. So we've been able to integrate other best-in-class products that our clients use to facilitate their communications, so they have this sort of seamless experience that allows them to use their best-in-class products within the same environment that Pulse facilitates. So we've been working away at that. We haven't told anyone about it.
Oh, she didn't tell me that part.
No. So we're working towards that. I mean, obviously there's our clients are already in the Pulse environment, in the seeing the Pulse brand, but that's a relatively new change. And I think the reason we've done that is because it represents putting that capability at the center of our business, and it's a nod to the fact that our roadmap is now very much forward looking. Since we bought Intillery, it's been about rationalization and scaling and all of those good things. And of course introducing new capabilities, but now we've been able to deal with that. Our roadmap is very much future facing, exclusively future facing, and that's the reason for the rebirth, the rebrand of the platform.
Yeah. No, that's really exciting. I mean, one of the things that I talk a lot about, and I don't know that I'm alone in this, is that we're sort of seeing the traditional customer communications business elevate in the enterprise, right? It's kind of moving from this, hey, we got to send a bill, please send a bill, to something that's, okay, we want to know everything, every conversation we've had with Sami, whether it's coming from the billing department or it's coming from the marketing team. We want to have one spot where we can say, we want to know every conversation we've had with Sami about whether he's paid his bill or changed his policy, or we've got a new product that we want to sell him. When you were describing this relaunch, what I heard was you're now going to be tapping into some of those other signals coming from other parts of the business.
100%.
So it's not just the operations team saying, okay, we got to run a bills, send the bills this month. It's all the other bits and parts of the enterprise. It might be the call center. It might be the marketing team that has little parts. Everybody's got their own little bit of data about Sami running, different parts of the company. You're bringing that all to one place.
Yeah. And I think everyone's trying to do that.
Right.
Is trying to understand their customers better. I think it's really important with the advent of AI that if we want to facilitate these hyper-personalized experiences, that we first consolidate what we know about the customer, because we all expect not personalized experiences, but fully contextualized experiences too. And that only comes when you can understand the entirety of my relationship, not just what data points sit in your CRM.
Right.
But if I've had a complaint recently, that needs to be reflected in the context of our conversation.
There's your word. We
And
haven't brought that
that's-
word up yet
yeah.
today.
So that's really important. And obviously we're trying to facilitate that, so is everyone else.
Yeah, but it's I think a lot of big enterprises are coming to organizations like MBA, like their service providers, saying, hey, help us. We could do it, but it's going to take us 5 years. And,
Yeah.
a bunch of people that, and resources that we may not have time to do. And I think what you've described to me is brilliant, because that's where I see the future of this industry going, particularly for service providers, because that's where we're moving, right?
Yeah.
It's yes, the print and the post, all that stuff it's still going to be there, but the value that you're going to bring your customers is elevating in the organization and helping them, to your point, understand the context. And it's, that's what AI wants, right? AI wants all of that context in order to help us.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to AI though. So what you described to me, in my view, has a tremendous amount of value, and it's definitely where the industry's going. And we chatted a little bit before we sat down about the role of private equity. And, I always say, I don't know that this is an original thought, just follow the money. And it's really interesting when you look back, when you sort of step back in this industry, and when you follow the money and you see where the money is going, it's telling a really interesting story. And I I believe people sort of generally, I think they acknowledge the role of things like private equity in the market, but I don't think they really understand how important it's going to be for innovation to create value. Because in my view, that money isn't chasing print. I mean, there's money there, right? There's an annuity base. There's sort of a revenue stream that's going to exist for some time. MBA is in a really unique position where you're privately owned, right? You're family owned. Don't have to answer to anybody else. Maybe you have to answer to your father. I don't know. We could talk about that later. But just what's your general sense about that? And obviously, you know who your competitors are, and particularly here in the UK. And I would say the significant ones are either owned by a big publicly traded company, or they're held by private equity firms. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that, in terms of where you see this industry going, and kind of how that's going to play out.
I think that I'm not necessarily the best person to talk about private equity and VC, simply because we don't operate within their environment or within their sphere. I think as an independently owned business, as you sort of alluded to, it gives us strength, right? It means that we can pursue opportunities, we can make decisions in the long term, so we can make capex investments with a long term view, um, and it gives us the ability to act in the interests of our clients, even if it's at the edge of our overarching strategy. We can be tactical when we need to be, because we are in charge of our own decision making. So that gives us a lot of strength. I think that the reality is that strength is underpinned by good financial strength.
Hmm.
And if you don't have that as an independent organization, then you can't be, you're not afforded the opportunity to go and pursue things like R&D, or pursue tactical things. So I'm fortunate as the CEO that our organization has had 40 years of trading that has got us to a place where we have good independent financial strength. That's not something that I've done. That's something that all the team before me have
Right.
achieved.
Right.
And the team that now lead the organization are very lucky to, be standing on the shoulders of those that came before, so that we can do those things. The reason we've been able to facilitate the growth we have is because of the efforts of all those people that contributed over that period, right? So we're fortunate. If we if we didn't have that financial resilience and strength, maybe I would look at it differently. I think VCs obviously have a place. They, you have to choose the right VC. If you're going VC, make sure that they believe not just in your business and your idea, but also you as a leadership team, because um, then they will back you when you suggest maybe a recommendation that deviates slightly from the strategy that was outlined. You need that flexibility to be successful in business. So I think that, and also just the right timing. If you are you looking to exit? Are you looking to grow? What's the purpose of it? And are you at the right time to make those promises to a VC and deliver on them? If you do, they're going to be a great partner if you fulfill those two things.
Yeah. Well, I suspect there's going to be a number of people that are going to see this podcast and be pounding on your door at some point. But um, because you are doing things that are really interesting and creating value, and the use cases that you're pursuing are interesting and digital first. And I guess I would just like to get your thoughts on just this comment before we move on. Would you describe MBA as a digital first company?
I'll tell you that we are a communications group and we provide solutions. I think we try to service the end customer as best we can. I think that we always try to act with them in mind because ultimately every business needs to acquire more customers,
Right.
retain the ones they've got, and service them for less.
Right.
That's what everyone's trying to do. So if you keep them in mind, you'll always end up with the right solution. Are we digital first? I think we think digitally first,
Okay.
but it would be an injustice to say that we're a digital first company because 50% over 50% of our service revenue is um
It's physical.
is physical, right? So I think that would be
Yeah, I think, I guess what I'm trying to get at is organizations that have really taken the approach that you have, which is that, and maybe I flip it around and say the companies where everything is, that old saying, if you got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? There's a lot of companies that have a very robust print capacity, and that is how they go to market. That's it. They sell. Um, and some of those are struggling because their customers are saying, but wait, yeah, yeah, we still do that, but we need these other capabilities and other functions. And I think what we're seeing, and I've seen evidence of companies that really have taken this more holistic approach, call it digital first or customer centric, approach that isn't, hey, we're a printer and we've got these big pieces of gear back here that, those things, we got to feed them, right?
yeah.
If you can get past that and you can go to market with that, a more comprehensive, cohesive, digital first approach, I believe there's examples of companies that have actually increased their print business because of that. In other words,
Yep.
their customers come to them and say, help me solve this digital stuff. And oh, by the way, yeah, we got to print some stuff too.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. We've had experience of that. I think why do you want to digitize a business, I guess is the first question. Is it because you really want to service the customer? Is it because you're trying to create more value? Um, you perceive value in the business? Is it because you want longevity? We're motivated by longevity and we're motivated by adding value to the customer. But that's not to discredit any business that decides they want to be great at print. They want to be the most efficient provider. And that alone, if you do that really well, means you'll probably endure too. So it's not to discredit that at all,
Right.
but each business operates with one strategy in mind and on its own merits. And I think here in the UK, where the market's been consolidated, there are some players that are absolutely print centric, but they're here on merit. So much of the industry has consolidated and they're still here. And
Yeah.
they've done that because they're great at what they do. So, you know,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just spend a minute on AI. It's my sense that everybody has to have an AI story. Everybody's got to have their AI pitch. And I've read some of your things, and I know MBA has put some pieces out there. But what's your view on, I guess, AI generally, and then more specifically, where does that land at MBA?
you've read, as you say, some of my stuff. So obviously, you know that I am following that space really, really closely. I think, I'm obliged to as
Right.
one of the leaders um, in our organization. We're obliged to. I think that it's a disruptive technology and it's got lots of powerful use cases. I was talking the other day, someone said to me, it's like it's going to have 10 times the impact of the Industrial Revolution at 10 times the speed. Now, the Industrial Revolution took 100
It's
years to take
exponential, right?
place, but that means in this decade, we will see, by the end in 10 years' time, we will see a very different operational environment. So we need to look to remain competitive so that we are still relevant at the end of that 10-year cycle. And therefore, we need to be looking at adoption. For us, we've got a very simple strategy. It's three-pronged. We want to make sure that we are driving adoption amongst our team for the benefit of our team. We want to drive adoption within our product set to enhance the capabilities of the products that we have and the impact they have for our clients that use them. And we want strong governance. And I think that is incredibly important because, we are looking at the largest scale, quietest data leak of IP that we've ever seen, because people are online all day plugging in information into unapproved tools across every company. In the UK, we're at about 55% adoption of AI. And last year it was 35, and the year before that it was closer to 20.
Right.
So 55% of the workforce are using AI tools every single day. How many of those tools are approved, and how many of them have actually been trained on those tools?
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I think it's super relevant. It's super relevant, and it's going to change the way that we engage as consumers. It already is.
Right.
So as a business that helps connect consumers and brands, we need to be following, the frontier of what's happening.
Yeah. It's sort of like if you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You have to innovate. You have to understand it.
Yeah.
Because if you wait and decide, "Oh, I'll do that next year," you're going to be not just a year behind. To your point, you're going to be multiple years behind just to catch up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the view. I think in the U.S., and I don't know that it's really that much differently in the U.K. when it comes to regulated communications, right? The financial services, the bank, the healthcare,
Yeah.
et cetera. There is internal use among the team, I think, is one thing, but putting that in a customer-facing product, I would say that we've got some hurdles. It's trust, right?
Yeah.
Authenticity, governance.
Yeah.
These are some big issues that they're going to be solved. Right?
Yeah.
They're going to be solved, and the regulations will provide the framework and the guidance for how to navigate. So what's up? What's next for MBA? I mean, we got something in August, which we're not supposed to talk about.
We do. We're happy to talk about it. But look, I think, we are an ambitious organization. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to transform. It's really difficult to do both of those things really well at the same time. We're doing
Mm-hmm.
the best we know how. And I think the way that we communicate with consumers is changing faster than it ever has. And therefore, as businesses, we have to adapt more quickly. I read something the other day, over 50% of executives are struggling with analysis paralysis, right? Because we have so much information, and therefore it becomes really difficult to make decisions, particularly when they're big decisions about transformation. And I think businesses are always looking for perfect, but it doesn't exist.
Right.
Sometimes good is great. And I think once people kind of get over the change in the way that information is presented and accessible, we will see more decision making. We will see more transformation, because it's going to be mandatory, and we want to be part of that, whether that's transforming the way that you do print, or whether that's transforming the way that you communicate with your customers at large.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I'm really excited to see what's next. I'm excited to see the new platform in August and see how that's perceived. Is that just going to be contained to the UK, or do you think that solution might find its way off the island and get across the sea, as you say?
Yeah, look, of course, we'd love to be able to engage rest of world. And we've got a development office in Porto, so we've got a bridge into Europe, which is super helpful. But if you can help us with the US, then dinner's on me. So,
Well,
love to be over there too.
it's I'll tell you about the project where I'm working. I mean, but the United States is by far the biggest market in the world,
By far, yeah,
and the most
absolutely.
important.
Definitely.
And for that reason, it's slow and cumbersome and plodding along. But I think also there's an opportunity for disruption in the United States that it's coming. Basically what happened in the UK, or what has happened in the UK over the last 10 to 15 years, is what the US is going to be in the next 10 to 15 years. So, well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. It's fun to learn more about MBA. It's been a company that I've tracked for, like I said, I think probably close to a decade. So congratulations on your continued success, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for listening to Above the Treeline from Treeline Press. This podcast reaches an audience focused on how customer communications reveal the larger story of digital transformation around the world. If your company has a story to tell about how AI, customer experience, or technology are reshaping how organizations deliver information, service, and trust, visit treelinepress.com to learn more.